I don't, I wish you hadn't started that now.
It's a little
So
late,
Roger
but
Callahan.
anyway.
Roger Callahan had a system that was tapping, and it was called emergency emotional emergency or oh, I have it.
TFT. TFT.
What?
It was
Thought field
thought field
therapy.
therapy.
Thought field therapy. Yeah.
I knew it as Callahan phobia technique.
That's it.
Yep.
That's what I know too. Callahan phobia technique. And then the energy psychology people got wind of it, and then the Gary guy brought it into their group. And I remember this because I was in training with the ICPKP, and Dr. Du had just got wind of that. And he said, okay, you guys, if we don't keep this stuff inside of kinesiology, the mainstream medicine is going to take our work, claim it as their own, and we won't be able to do it. That was his fear. So, oh, sorry. So now I've exposed myself. I'll be quiet.
So little bits of tidbits that further that I know about it is I believe it was that Roger Callahan took a Touch for Health course in the mid 1970s because Touch for Health was published in 1973, and at first it was John Thie and Gordon Stokes and Daniel Whiteside and Mary Hartford teaching, I believe it was, right? Basically primary authors, contributors to the original Touch for Health manual. And my understanding of the story is that Roger Callahan took a Touch for Health course with one and or some of those folks. In that, became aware of the fact that acupuncture meridians and organ systems can harbor emotional stress. And one of the ways to release emotional stress from an acupuncture meridian is to tap away fairly enthusiastically on either the start point or the end point for that meridian. And they had, at that point in time, narrowed down some of the key emotions that would be involved with each organ gland meridian system. And Roger Callahan had a female client. I will call her Dorothy. I don't know if that's the correct name. I don't think so. But he had been working with that female client for some time on a water phobia. Even the big or daily waterish rituals would cause her stress as a phobia. And he'd been working with her doing standard psychological counseling for some time and wasn't progressing at a pace that he would like. So he thought he would try some of this new stuff on it. So to introduce the conversation to her, he said, okay, so Dorothy, when you think about having a bath or going into water, where in your body do you feel it? And she put her hand immediately over her stomach area. So then the story goes that Roger Callahan then told her to start tapping on the start of the stomach meridian below her eyes while thinking about being in water or thinking about bathing. Which other points he recommended, I don't know. But he then, after a few moments or minutes of tapping on the start of the stomach meridian, again, stomach, because that's where she felt the sensation in her body, he said, okay, well, if you think about being in water now, how does it feel? And she says, oh, it feels better. I feel more relaxed about it. And then he invited her to sometime over the next little bit, find an opportunity to go get in some water, have a bath, whatever the case may be. Well, living in California, apparently she stopped and went for a swim in the ocean and had a great old time swimming in the ocean. That caught his attention and eventually led Roger Callahan to develop what I believe was a reasonably complex protocol of ascertaining what the emotions were, which organ gland meridian system would be most involved with it, and which acupuncture meridians then to do the tapping on. And then, so rather than when Gary Craig took it over, the approach that I've been told that he took was, well, rather than just fixing some of the meridians, why don't we just fix them all? And then why don't you just go ahead and tap on all 14 meridians? And then some of them became, I guess, geographically inconvenient to reach, so that it became narrowed down to not necessarily all 14 meridians, but it still is start and finish points for acupuncture meridians, largely speaking, done in EFT tapping in combination with triple E or 3 or 4, something like that, for psychological reversal. That's my understanding on the history of it.
There's small intestine 3 for psychological reversal.
Small intestine
Triple 3 is the gamut point that is a catch-all while you do stuff with your eyes and you hum and you count.
And what does the word gamut mean?
I don't know, but that's what they call it. GAMUT.
Kind of like the whole gamut, the whole ball of wax?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And Gamut is shorter and easier to spell than Shabangaruni, so fair enough.
Third point on triple warmer.
Yeah, right there.
That's part of the fire element. Yeah.
Small intestine. Small intestine
Oh,
3.
they're using triple warmer 3 for gamut and the karate chop point for psychological reversal.
So small intestine 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was at a chiropractor once, naturopath, and he was testing me on some fancy doodad machine. I'm hooked up to electrodes, and he goes, "Oh, you got psychological reversal on accepting this therapy." And going, and he's like, "Oh, dang, now what am I going to do?" And I went, "No problem, doc. Even though I've got resistance to accepting this therapy, I deeply and profoundly love, accept, appreciate, and respect myself on all levels now." Okay, try me again, doc. It was just like, what the hell just happened?
Awesome. And did you get a different reading on the machine?
Absolutely, of course. And he became a client of mine.
I was sitting on my coaching call today, and one of the ladies did a fabulous walkthrough of emotions and everything, but she walked through it to find out where your triggers would be. And so then she said, "Now you know what your triggers are." Meanwhile, I'm doing like Cook's hookups underneath the table. I'm like, I'm not keeping any of that stuff. I'm going to just clear it right out. Everybody else was like, "Yes, now we know what our triggers are." I was like, "Oh my goodness."
No, I'm gone.
You guys are all healers, but you're not. It was funny. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've got the awareness now that getting near water scares me, so I won't get near water anymore. And just like knowing what your trigger is isn't fixing anything.
Exactly.
I had something this morning. I went in for my checkup for my surgery, and the woman and the surgeon. I even told her today. I said, "I know you probably don't hear this very often, but I says I just admire you. I admire your skill. I admire your bedside manner. I just admire you." And she was like, "Oh." But anyway, she was looking at it. She says, "Well, now that we've opened it up," she says, "you're likely to have arthritis. You're likely to get arthritis." And I had to laugh because I don't believe in arthritis. My mother has it, but I'm not. I don't have those genes. I have my father's genes. In a nanosecond, I was like, "No, I won't get arthritis." And the minute that my thought went, I thought, this surgeon, she must be psychic, because she says, "Oh yeah, well, we won't worry about that." I'm like, "Thank you for moving on."
There's power in words, hey?
Yeah.
So I just to go back to the EFT points. Helga, sorry you're not feeling well.
Get better soon.
What would it be in your
Thank
company?
you.
Good to see you. Yeah, so the tapping points, I put all of Callahan's, not all of them. I took some of the more easier ones and I put them into foot patterns. So what you would do in tap dancing, I just created patterns with it. And so then the kids could be tapping through those patterns as we were working our way into whatever performance piece they needed. So I just share that with you because they did go to the end points on the face, but it's really easy to do the feet. You could do the feet again under the table while you're on a Zoom call. So it's really easy to throw them in.
Well, the thing I've had a bugaboo about the tapping, Evelyn, you and I, 2003, were in North Carolina. No,
05.
2003 was Toronto. It was 2005 we were in North Carolina, and Greg was there too. And they had that whole auditorium, and they had everybody tapping, and I'm rolling my eyes going, this tapping stuff never works for me. It worked like a hot dang when I was in the group. It was because I had a massive stitch in my back. Chiropractors couldn't get rid of it. Kinesiologists couldn't get it. I didn't know what the hell it was. And I'm walking around with this really weird stitch in my back that originated from a time I stepped wrong when I was a teenager. I stepped off a curb and it's like it tore something. Anyways, paying on, never come back. And I was like very, very impressed with that. and then started looking at it a little bit more. And then there's the recipe where you tap here and you tap here. They used to tap here, now they don't tap here anymore. And sometimes you tap here, but sometimes you don't. And now we tap here. And I'm going, what is going on? That everybody that does a tapping technique growing up of Gary Craig has had to change it so that they haven't broken copyright.
Right.
So why does it all work? And then somebody I was visiting, you know her, Leah, in Vancouver, Evelyn. You introduced me to Leah. She had a book one day on tapping, and she says, "Oh, you're much more advanced than this." And I went, "There's something in that book." And I got that book and I opened the book, and the paragraph was, "It really doesn't matter which points you tap. As long as you're tapping on an acupuncture point, you're activating the parasympathetic reflex to relax, to clear that you're clearing the stress just because you're tapping on a point. So don't get your knickers in a knot about what I call a recipe. Like, did I miss one? Oh, I think there was one. Was there one? Was it here or was it here? Or
You're working on the law of deficiency. Anything
I
can
don't know.
heal anything.
But I love that idea of, as long as you're doing your best to be on a point, you could, she says, you could literally just tap one point. But as a kinesiology type person trained, I know we don't use that word in Canada, but who has learned all the beginning and end points, meridians, alarm points, and all that, I truly do believe that when you're more specific to release it where it's trapped, you're going to get a better result.
I have a question. So different than the Touch for Health training, Dr. Du, in his beginning stages of teaching people muscle testing, works with the yin muscles. And so the students are only actually learning 8 muscles to start with, and they get to stay with that for about 24 hours of training or so before he introduces another 12 muscles. And the philosophy of that is, when you think about the 5-element wheel, our rule has always been you correct the first under after the over in a clockwise direction. So his thinking was, you're always correcting the yin meridian. And so why not just teach the students the yin meridians plus central and governing? So the reason I'm mentioning this, I'm just throwing that forward. Like, if you wanted to short term the tapping, why wouldn't you just pick the yin organ or the yin meridians and tap on those? Just an idea.
Probably also throw in triple heater in there, just because the adrenal mechanism is a fairly good harbor and house for stress to live in.
Hang on a second. Is triple? I haven't got the map in my head. I have to tell you, my brain's not as clever as it
Triple
was.
heater is upper right yang of fire.
Upper right, yeah, okay. So small.
It's the partner to triple warmer is pericardium, is the yin. Or
Is it the yin then?
circulation sex.
Anyways, is it the yin or the yang? That's all I care about.
Triple warmer is the yin.
Yin, or yang, or the pericardium's the yin.
What did you say, Lucille? I could hear you back there.
Triple warmer is the yang meridian. The small intestine and the heart are the yin.
The yins, yeah.
And
And why did you want triple warmer included, Greg? You had a specific reason?
Adrenals and sympathetic fight flight.
So I guess what you're saying is that it's not sufficient enough just to work with the yin meridians. You would want to include all the other two.
Yes, because the sympathetic nervous system is just such an active system. Yeah, I'd throw it in there just for grins.
So you'd, instead of working with the 1, 2, 5, 6, you'd make 7.
Sure.
And the triple warmer consists of all 10 of the organs.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I don't know where she's coming from with that.
Okay, so the sand gel.
The triple warmer, it shows you what organs are involved with. The
Organs or
and the
glands?
Both. Well, okay, so the triple warmer, the sand gel, the triple heater is the upper, middle, and lower cavities of the torso, which then house all the organs and a good chunk of the glands, except for those which are in the cranium.
Okay, so can you say everything that you said to me and say it differently? Because I'm not sure what the point was.
Sure. Okay. So, I'm sorry, the lady who's on the phone, her name is
Lucille.
Lucille. Okay. So Lucille mentioned that triple heater also equals all 10 organs. And that's true because the triple heater has the upper part of the torso, which is the heart and the respiratory. The middle vessel has the digestive. So you get liver, gallbladder, stomach, spleen, pancreas. And then the lower is your reproductive eliminative. So your small and large intestine, bladder, kidneys, pick a vessel, and reproductive system. So yeah, in truth, the triple heater is also a house for the organs minus the brain. But then because the adrenals are such a key factor in the nervous system and the brain is pretty responsive to sympathetic, parasympathetic state, throw it in for decoration. It's kind of like the cherry on top of the cake, right?
Yeah.
Where are you getting that information from, Greg?
Oh, that's traditional Chinese medicine.
But are you reading from something right now?
My brain.
You ooze that out every day.
Sorry,
We got all that on recording, right?
that's triple heater. The Sanjiao, the three vessels, the upper, middle, and respiratory, the upper, middle, and lower cavities of the torso. The three places where heat and vitality are generated within the torso is the three heaters: the upper, middle, and lower. The respiratory
Oh, I
and
see
heart.
where you're going now. Yeah.
The middle is your digestive, your liver, gallbladder, stomach, spleen, pancreas. Kidney, I can't remember formally if it's part of the middle or part of the lower, but it's sacral chakra correspondence, so I would probably throw it in the lower. And then your lower Sanjiao, your lower vessel, is your reproductive eliminative, so your small and large intestine organs, as well as your bladder and reproductive.
See, I come at that a little differently in my brain. I see the triple warmer as the organization of all the hormones and
Yep.
glands that regulate the three burners. I see that not so specific to the organs themselves, but to the glands that are in charge of what's happening to the organs.
Yeah, they have their influence, absolutely. No denying that. Yeah.
The other of the extraordinary meridians are all connected to the glands, aren't they?
Yep.
The pineal, the hypothalamus, etc.
Pituitary, hypothalamus, that's right. Yeah. It's funny, I have that book just like 5 steps away from me.
You should just on over and grab it, Evelyn. Just one-legged hop.
No.
Or just leave it. It's fine.
Yeah, no, you've been up enough today.
I know, I just,
Greg, talking about who started it about the founders or old information or wherever we're at.
for
Somebody
EFT.
started this thread earlier.
Yeah, and
I had a client yesterday or the day before, and she's really complex. And I've referred her actually to the naturopath chiropractor dude I was referring to earlier in the call. And so she's seeing the two of us, and he says, I can't get into this system. So she comes to see me. And of course, I do sips and magic work. And anyways, the other day was really cool that I had to load one of the gate points on, and I asked the body, why am I working with this gate? Am I having to activate? It was bladder 65 for adduction. So is it about working with the adductor and the lats? Is it like, I'm trying to work out what's up with this point. And it wasn't to work with it as a gate point, the way it's taught in Touch for Health. It was, I just had to touch the points and put them in circuit and work with them. And I kind of looked up and went, Richard, you're here looking over my shoulder, aren't you? Because have you ever heard Richard talk about loading a command point
No.
with people who have neurological conditions? He loved to talk about gallbladder 44 and it is the metal element point on the wood on the gallbladder meridian. And I don't know why, but he came up with this is a really key point if you're working with somebody that's a real mess. And I used it once and it was a bloody miracle happened. Absolute miracle. So I loaded bladder 67 because this woman's gates are constantly off. And I keep telling her at the end of any body work session, rub your gate points. Rub them, like take your shoes off before you go, like go sit in the waiting room before you go to your car, rub your gate points so that all the money you're spending all the time going to all these appointments, that you hold on to the benefits for longer, because that is true. So I just thought it was really, really weird to feel like Richard was in the room looking over me at that point in time.
Lisa, a little bit of history for you. Richard Utt was the developer of applied physiology, and he was fortunate enough to meet Sheldon Deal early in his life, who basically kept him alive on the planet, but as well lit him with a fire of curiosity that nobody could quench. And Richard Utt, due to his extreme personality curiosities, accomplished in a short 10-year period what would have taken normal folks several decades to do, and forever changed the foundation of how this world of ours lives in. He is also a bit of a founder of the idea of combining something to do with a finger mode with an acupuncture point to open up a menu or define what it is that you want to be working with. A lot of that is kind of Richard Utt stuff. And then as well, he was big on the 14 position muscle monitoring. Oh, so since I got some applied physiology and folks in the room, this is how I explain the 14 position muscle monitoring to my clients to help it make sense for them. So we've got 14 acupuncture meridian organ gland systems in the body. You start with central governing, you work your way through from stomach through to large intestine, right? You have 14 altogether. So if you imagine, and each one of them, much like us, we need help from our buddies. We need somebody to cut our hair, do our taxes, fix our car, that type of thing, right? All the organ systems also need help, not only from themselves, but all their friends to live in the neighborhood. So as a figurative example, imagine you've got a 14-story office building. So you've got one floor for each one of the organ meridian systems. So you got a stomach floor, you got a spleen floor, you got a heart floor, yada, yada, etc. Each floor has 14 offices, one for itself and one for all of its buddies. So on one side of the elevator bank, you've got 7 yin offices. The other side of the elevator bank, you've got 7 yang offices. And then I'll take one of their indicator muscles and position one. I'm going to use pectoralis major sternal just because it fits into visual range of the camera. There's position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as you go outwards. Position number 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 as you work your way back to the start. And what the position of the limb you choose and the muscle you choose gives you your organ meridian office floor. That's who you're having your primary conversation with. The position 1 through 14 gives you permission then to go to the individual partner relationship, the other yin or yang organ or gland system, have a really inescapable muscle position conversation. Now, it's a conversation. Conversations can have lots of topics, and that's where finger moding comes in. Finger moding determines the topic that you wish to talk about. You want to talk about its organ function, its gland function, its hormone function, parasite, that's parasite mode or bone mode, take your pick, the anatomy, the physiology, the chakra, the meridian. What do you want to talk about? And or combinations thereof. And you load the indicator point. I like to call them indicator points versus alarm points because alarm points can be alarming. So I call them organ indicator points. You load those points into the organ systems that you're working with. Let's say you're doing liver and let's pick, I don't know, heart. So you liver and central because that's on camera. So you do liver and central, load them in with a couple of modes. Now you've got a very inescapably defined conversation that you are really asking very detailed information about the relationship between those two. And then when you do corrections, those corrections are assigned to that task. So finger moding gives you the ability to assign instructions to the task of your correction. as well as to explore specific data fields. So that's how I explain 14 positional muscle monitoring to clients, is the 14-story office building with 14 offices on every floor, and the 7 yin on one side and the 7 yang on the other side. Feel free
And
to.
the holographic aspect of working with one meridian and another meridian has been huge for one of Evelyn's sets of essences, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was all came from Layla Turner. But I want to come back to Greg's conversation. In the PKP model, excuse me, we use finger moding, and what the finger moding is it's a physical menu. So each one of the finger modes has a representation of where we're going to apply a correction. So what I heard you say, correct me please, Greg, if I haven't got it right, you're finding the object in the reference in the meridian system, and then you're putting a finger mode, and add the finger mode itself is what's adding the vibration, or is there more to it than just that?
Yes to both. So okay, so let's say, have you taken any Richard Dutt courses? No?
No,
Okay.
I've
So
given
to explore the Richard Dutt menu, you can either, I often just start with a 2 meridian conversation. I'll say, do we need a 2 meridian conversation? Or I'll go, which one of my menus of practice are we up to? If the answer comes applied physiology, will that equal a 2 meridian conversation. And I'll monitor for which is the first meridian system. We'll either verbally challenge or check alarm points, and then check for the secondary meridian system. And those 2 meridians tell me who I'm talking to.
Correct, I understand that part.
And then I'll check finger modes to see.
What do the finger modes do for you?
They take me into the menus of workshop manuals of a dozen or so workshop
So
manuals.
if you have the chakra, to show me your chakra finger mode. So you
Next finger on top of thumbnail. Yeah.
So you have a chakra finger mode, and in your manuals, you'll have a list of corrections that's related to chakra. Is that correct or not correct?
Chakra would more than likely take me in combination to chakra and meridian, which equals 17 keys.
Okay.
And the 17 keys is the wiring system between
I actually have that book, so I understand.
the nervous system, the chakras, and the meridians. That's what 17 keys is, that wiring system.
That's how the herbal cards were developed, and I didn't know anything about this.
That's how what was developed?
That's how the herbal cards were developed, and my first deck I think I created back in 2006 or 2008, and it had to have the meridian and it had to have the chakra on it. And so I was already tapping into that. Like, I've never taken any of Richard Dutt's. I have some of his manuals. I was private with him. He gifted me a couple because I was doing some of the research. And yeah, so I understand the hologram.
Okay.
And so if it's okay, I'm just going to jump in and say 2 things in relation to the hologram, only because you guys have opened up the conversation about that. And I don't mean to hog the conversation, but what I learned about the hologram, it just kind of blew me away. I'm in Findhorn Gardens. I forget what the name of the book is. It's done by Findhorn Garden, and I've read Findhorn Garden several times, but it was the last chapter that I could never really wrap my head around. And it was a fellow that came in a little later, and he was so metaphysical, like he just launched off into a different direction. Obviously, I wasn't spiritually connected to that up until recently. And so I was trying to figure out why people were getting such great success with the herbal cards, because literally they're just pictures. But what happened when I tapped into the meridian and the chakra, I was tapping into the hologram. I was tapping into 5th dimension. And what I read in his book was the diva of the plants live in the same realm as the archangels, the fauns, the gnomes, the fairies, and they're all there in the 5th dimension. So that's why that works. I had to throw that at you.
Sweet. And why does it work? it's like the same as Denise said with the artwork that we've got in our cards, right? Like, it's all infused, it's all sitting there. You just have to engage it.
That's right, because it's in the love space where there is no time and there is no space. It only comes directly from the heart, and that's why it works.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Oh, this is great. Don't be sorry for nothing.
Mhm.
Well, the night before Evelyn and I launched the masterclass, I woke up with one of those dreams that you remember. And it was like, oh my goodness, healing happens in the space between the cells. Like that's a really profound space when you can get the space, the intercellular, no, extracellular space between cells. I was in the dream and I was in there and vibrations were happening and it was, oh, I've just been blessed by the sun. Anyways, how cool is that? And I went, what the heck is that? And she's going, well, of course, because you're accessing, that's where you're accessing the tiny space of the heart when you're doing that. It's like, ooh. And so I just thought it was a really neat message to get the morning of our launch.
That's way cool.
That's where the one deck came from for our deck too, was all the spaces. I didn't do all the spaces, but the general spaces. Because that's where, if you don't build that space in, then change can't happen because it's always bumping up against some other obstacle, right? So if you don't build the space in, you're not gonna have that lasting effect.
Well, you talked about it in your movement class on your Wednesday, for me, Wednesday morning. And then I ran across it another time, and then I ran across it in your cards, and I ran across it another time, and then I run across it with Evelyn's, our collaboration. And so it's made me really think that we must be accessing the quantum, where they say that literally, what is, I'm not a quantum person. I can plug in the toaster and I don't know exactly how electricity is made. I know the thing spins. I know there's cables. I know there's powers. I know there's magnetic fields. And I know one can go to I get the general gist, so I can make toast. But this quantum stuff, it's kind of crazy that there is more space between molecules than something. And is that the space for
Can I,
access when we're healing?
can I give you a story around this?
Sure.
Okay. This has been one of my favorite kind of, give me in the right mood with the right cocktail and we want to talk about stuff. This is what I'll talk about, right? So where we're leading to is Greg's theory of how what we do creates change in how our physical body behaves. I'm going to walk you through. How many things in the room that you're currently in, as well as your body, are made from elements of the periodic table? All of them. How many are not? None of them, because it's all made from elements of the periodic table. But you take those elements of the periodic table, if you were to go to Costco, go up and down the aisles and buy one of each of those and then put them home on your kitchen table, what would they do? Not much. Add some water, some of them will behave. However, each one of those elements will have certain other elements that it can play with. And then it can combine molecules. So part of my philosophy is that inside of the atomic structure of each element, which again is 99.9% empty space and empty space and energy. What does energy contain? The potential for information. What does information do? Changes how something behaves, right? So as we're working with all of our structures, we are working with the magic of how the elements of our body out of the periodic table form together to make the molecular aspects of our body and all the little chemicals that run through it at 8.6 trillion chemical reactions every 5 seconds. Get that, 8.6 trillion chemical reactions every 5 seconds taking place in your body, right? But all that happens just because it knows how, based on instructions and information. So when we're doing muscle monitoring, what are we getting information from? We're getting information from the physical body, but really the energetics of it, about the information going on. And then when we do a correction, what do? We do something with an intention. Something with an intention to a spot. And it can be a different spot and with the same intention, but it'll get the same result. But what we're doing is essentially not much different than hitting the remote control or phoning somebody on our phone. We're giving instructions to a region to change how it's working with its molecular structure, because all those little atoms and molecular structures, they do contain that total quantum potential, the total multi-plurential potential of how to interact with pretty much anything given different impetus or stimulus. So we can take all of the components which comprise the molecular structure of our body, provide it with a intended action, which comes in hundreds of thousands of different ways in this world and many other energy work bodies. But that is my theory on how we're creating change, is we are intending change into the 99.9% empty space that has the energy information sandwich going on. And the information that we input then changes how the energy behaves, how the energy behaves then changes how the physical structure behaves, which then equals how your anatomy does physiology different.
I would counter one piece of that,
By all means, go for it, Doc.
which is the goal that you would have started with.
Yeah,
I'm going to ignore
absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Because you've got your intention after that, but it's the original goal, which is creating that initial space.
Yep.
Yeah. Just to have that piece in there.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's why, Denise, when you're doing Tai Chi and you open up with the breath, you're opening up all the spaces. The spaces create exactly what Greg's talking about, if you have your intention at the very beginning. Otherwise, it can be random. Feels good right now, but it might not feel good in 30 minutes when the stressor of your next project hits your head. And then your body tightens back up again.
Thank you for clarifying that, because there's a couple of small moves you've had us do, but you had set the intention at the start of the meeting, and then we do this move and this thing disappears. Just like, wow, tiny, tiny movement done with intention. Very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have to leave. It's time for course. Evelyn will have to leave too.
Oh, good for you, because I wasn't going to say anything. I was just going to write it.
Evelyn, we're gonna be waiting.
I know. All right.
You're late for class.
And then
You're the only ones on board. You guys got
See, Lucy's already online waiting for us,
All
Evelyn.
right. Thank you.
Nice to see you, Lisa.
Lisa, you're learning from a lovely lady, so enjoy it.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for being here and your patience as we get all of the details sorted for you.
Now we have to the name, right? Lucy says thank you as well.
Awesome. Great to have you, Luce.
Bye.
well, this is fun. Happy to
I
finally
should've-
catch.
Pardon me?
I'm happy to finally catch one of these. I haven't caught one in what, a year or two or something like that. Yeah.
It's been delightful, hasn't it, Sandra? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Sandra. You're still
Can you
muted.
unmute yourself?
There we go.
I've been talking to a dog that we're sitting, and I did some energy work on this dog between 2 and 3 a.m. this morning. And it's so interesting to see how the work that we did has settled this dear dog. He's down here. His name's Quinto. There he is. He's
pretty mellow now because
he's pretty mellow. He was trained as a service dog. He was trained for a little boy who, weeks into acquiring this freshly trained dog, it was found that this little boy was allergic to him. So he ended up being shipped back to his family, who trained him from a puppy. And they were more than happy to get him back because he's just such a love. Anyhow, he's been having some struggles with his ears and his paws, and we have him for 10 days. And I asked permission from his mom, could I do some energy work on him? She said, oh yeah, so I think, oh good, I've got this little fellow here. But it was interesting, at 2 o'clock, he woke me up because he was really just scratching his ears and just really uncomfortable. And I had asked him energetically when we got him, I just kind of tried my best to communicate my vibe to him that I'm willing to help him if he's up to that. So anyway, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I thought, what time is it? Okay, here we go. I went downstairs and he followed me right into my session room, and I put the heating pad on my infrared mat on my massage table, got that going. He laid right underneath my table, and I got energy permission from him to do some work. So I did a number of corrections, and it was interesting to see some of the corrections that he required was around the word conforming to obedience, conforming to speed up. He's very slow with walking, I've noticed. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? He's got, he had a stress response to having to move quickly. And he has a stress response to obedience. And I think this obedience drive has been really nailed into him, being a service dog. So those are just two of the corrections that I did over the course of 1 hour. But it's interesting to see him feeling more mellow today, happy, relaxed. Yeah,
That's wonderful.
it is wonderful. I mean, it's really fun to work with dogs and children because they have no preconception of what's happening. They catch your vibe that you want to help, and they get it. As he's lying on the, I'm yawning with a box of Kleenex, dabbing my face because I yawn when I feel the energy shift, and he's sighing underneath me. We had a little duet going.
Wow.
He was feeling the energy shift. Yeah. So I hope he's good. He's twitching now. You can hear I'm talking about him. But anyway, it's fun to be able to do this work with animals too.
Isn't it interesting if that little boy was really allergic? I mean, it's all energy, but whether it was just the incompatible energy of this, that's not the dog's will.
Well, it could have been. It can be numerous things, and all we do is ask the body. I mean, had I been invited to be a part of that connection, I probably could have helped out. Because both of them were likely, the dog would have been stressed because he was there to help, and he knew he was being introduced to this little person, and he was probably doing his best.
Mm-hmm.
But the little guy, so whether it was physical, psychological, emotional, whatever, could have been a number of things that we could have discerned from the menu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Lucky dog.
Well, we're lucky too. We're missing our dog. We had to put her down 2 years ago. And the day that his mom contacted me, I had looked out the window, our sliding glass window, and just almost had a vision of our past dog out there on the deck. And I thought, oh, I miss her. And within 10 minutes, I got a text from this friend saying, can you look after my dog for 10 days?
That's awesome. Mine was my cat was in here, but he's gone. He's been trying to, he jumps up all over my computer, all over my head. I think you guys have seen him on some of the calls.
Oh, he's cute.
Yeah, he's calmed down, so that's much better. He'd attack me in the middle of the night and bite my nose, but he stopped doing that, so.
Well, we've had a good connection. I don't know, is there anything else, Denise or Greg, that you wanted to chime in with, or anything, Michelle, that you wanted to say?
I have one thing.
Yeah.
I've gotten the message over and over that sometimes I just do too much or work too hard at things. And I'm coaching muscle tuner students over Zoom, and I've got a new student who's gone through the program, and I said, hey, I heard you say you want to be able to offer muscle tuning over Zoom. So how about you jump in the hot seat right now and you practice doing that with me?
Yeah, good idea.
She's going. So we did the process, and she picked a muscle, and it was pectoralis major sternal. And I actually had no awareness because since the injury I had, there's so many moving parts and shifts and things happening. All I know is this isn't yet perfect, and it's getting more and more stable since surgery, thank God. So this side, no problem. This side, it's like, come on. And so I went, yeah, there's a problem. There's a difference between one and the other. And she muscle tested to do the neurolymphatic on the front. And I said, teach me how to do that. So where does it say to rub in the book? She's like, you do it like this. And I go, okay. And then she says, now we need to do your dynamic tissue reset. So she coached me how to do that. And I wasn't getting a pulse. I wasn't getting a pulse. I wasn't getting a pulse. If there's anything I've learned is to really respect, if you have any ability to sense pulses, is wait. And so I'm like, just a minute, like there's something groovy's happening. Just it's like, and so we're chatting away, and she's talking to the other people in the meeting, and I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. And so we remeasured it, and it went up to here. And I'm like, okay, that's not bad. Like it was from here to here, about there. And then I says, and remember, I've had an injury, so coach me to do origin insertion technique. So she says, well, yeah, okay, pectoralis major sternal. It's here on the sternum. So I was like, ooh, it's tender. Ooh, that's tender. Let's do the little thing in here. And then it was, whee!
Wow.
And one muscle. And since that release, I'm able to do so many more things.
That's wonderful.
It's like other muscle range of motions. I can get my hand all the way across. I can tie my apron now. I haven't been able to do that forever. So I just want to put the energy and the thought out there that sometimes a simple approach has the ripples, the residual stuff that continues to vibrate after original input.
If you take brush knee and ward off monkey and focus on the other hand. So we did this today, and I didn't know how I got there, but maybe it was for you. But when you come through, your hand goes through, and you would be opening this hand just like you were just doing. But this hand in the front is the important hand, because as it pulls forward, it creates the spiral for you to be able to take the hand back, which would give you a safe way to learn how to repattern the right way to move the arm. So when you're doing things, you take your whole body to do it, rather than trying to the parts that maybe don't have all the parts they would like left. Right?
Yeah.
But
well, it's so cool because I own my arm again since the naturopath did neural prolotherapy, not prolotherapy, but neural something. Anyways, it's just all my arm went got all warm, and I was like, woohoo, because I crushed the nerve plexus, and I kind of given up that it was ever going to come back. And so there's I drive around in the car, got my phone on Siri, playlist, mix, shuffle, whatever, right? And Richard Utt comes on a recording I didn't even know. No, it was Charles Krebs, sorry. Charles Krebs is on the recording, and I'm driving down the road, and it's him at a conference, the last conference I went to in Salt Lake City. And I'm going, wow. And Charles is talking all about neurons going into an idling state. Greg well knows this conversation, and he went on. I was there. I was bone tired because I hadn't slept for 2 days. That's a whole other story. But when I'm so glad I recorded it, and I never listened back to it. So here it is. I'm driving on the car and going, what? That's interesting.
I'd like a playlist like that.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, well, I've got something like 16 hours of music stuffed on my phone. I've got absolutely everything on my phone, so it's always with me wherever I go. My laptop only has like 15 songs, but yeah, every once in a while I get surprised. 2 weeks ago, I've done shuffle before. I didn't even know like how often I drive in my car and I get, hey, shuffle, play something. And so just randomly, it was cool. And then Adam shared his article that he's doing for Nolative. And then to hear Charles, it's good. Greg, have you heard that they're trying to get something together for Charles on a Zoom as a big, like send off before he goes off to Australia?
Oh, Charles is moving?
Yeah, Charles has to move. He's messed up pretty bad right now, eh?
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that he's movable.
So am I, but I think not last time I talked to him, but several times ago, it's like way, way cheaper to live in Australia than in the US. Like dirt cheap. So either a position's opened up for him or, you know, since he's gotten super paralyzed again, he's so high care, I think he's got to go to Australia because it'll be cheaper.
Wow.
Keep me posted on that. And no, I hadn't heard a thing.
Yeah, Jackie's supposed to be working on it with Jack Young, and Jack Young's trying to rope me into it. And so I've got a few ideas, but I haven't heard more. I'm kind of waiting for Jack to, and Jackie.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
And Jack Young, I don't know. And Jackie Mooney, I haven't been in touch with her for a while.
She's been in Canada
What?
quietly. I think she's
Oh,
here
good for her.
visiting family.
Good. Nice.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a must trip or not, but
That would have been 3 years or so since you've been up here. So
yeah. Well, kids, we could yak
We could.
forever. I still have the intention that we're going to meet on a beach somewhere under a palapa with some nice fruity drinks.
You know, I got the beach right here. You're welcome anytime. Then there's a bed
Well,
upstairs.
I was kind of thinking tropical, so summer is good.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
I was just telling my husband last night, I got to get myself off to the East Coast. I've never been.
You
Yeah, ditto.
definitely do. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Hmm.
Happy to host. Lovely to do a retreat. Whatever. Yep. Just don't have the headspace for a retreat, but I'm happy to host. You know what I mean? Like somebody else organizes, I'm okay.
Okay,
So-
how many air mattresses can we fit in your dance studio?
We
Right.
have had 14 sleeping in this house at one time. That was all had beds at that point. But yeah, we have 2-bedroom upstairs. We've got this room down here, which easily we can put a couple beds in, and we only have one
Great.
bathroom.
Gonna be a party.
Just one bathroom, but that's okay. Yep. But the beach is here. They say people who've been to the Mediterranean will say that beaches we have here compare. Which, when they said
Wow,
that, I was
wow.
like, what? But it is, the summertime is just so beautiful. So, and fall is gorgeous. Like September is amazing. So, yeah,
Well, this time next year, we're gonna have it organized for sure.
sounds great.
Okay, I gotta
Awesome.
carry off. My husband's taken off on a sudden trip that wasn't planned.
So
Awesome. I'm going to sell tea.
Oh, go have fun.
Nice.
Okay, make your ass show up here at the next call, Greg. You're fun to have around.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, quite enjoyed it. Lovely to hang out with
Okay.
you.
If you can't be great, be awesome. All right.
Get a chance to do that tomorrow morning. Got a new client coming in, doing a surrogate treatment for her 15-year-old autistic son.
Aw.
You're there.
Awesome.
Just
Good luck.
ask Richard to look over your shoulder while you're there, right?
Okay.
Okay.
We'll call it
Bye.
a little bit of
Talk to
Chucky
you
too.
later.
Okay.
Bye.
Lots of love.
Back at you.